Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Let's start our video with a story about a guy named Harry who turned a frustrating shopping experience into a DIY adventure. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. I don't work here, but neither does anyone else. This is actually my husband's story to tell, but he isn't on Reddit, so I'll tell it on his behalf. We can call him Harry for this story. About 15 years ago, Harry was working on the landscaping in our yard and needed to buy several bags of mulch. So he headed off to the garden center of one of the large home improvement stores near us. It was peak gardening season and they were sold out, so he headed to another. They were also out. Third time's the charm. The third place had them, but the pallet within reach was empty. There were a couple pallets about 6 feet up on the shelf, but definitely out of reach. Now, Harry's patience is running thin after driving around from store to store in heavy traffic, and of course he sees no garden center employees in sight. He does finally see a pole with a phone on it that a customer can pick up to be connected with someone at the customer assistance desk up front, so he tries this. Someone answers and he explains what he needs. They tell him they'll page someone to assist him. He hangs up and here's the page. He waits. Harry waited several minutes and is becoming more and more disgruntled. He picks up the phone again. Yeah, I called 15 minutes ago and you paid someone to come to the garden center to get a pallet of mulch down, but no one's shown up yet? They paged again, and again he waited. After several more minutes, he noticed a forklift. He walked over to it and saw that someone had left the keys in it. He knew how to operate a forklift from a job he'd had many years before, so he used the plastic chains to hook off access to the aisle, hopped on, and lowered the pallet he needed. He left the forklift, and as he unroped the aisle, a man asked, "Sir, will you get that fertilizer down for me?" Harry said, "Oh, I don't work here. No one else seems to work here, and there were keys in the forklift, so I decided to help myself." The guy's mouth dropped open in shock. My husband loaded his mulch on his flatbed cart, headed to checkout, and was on his way. No one who worked there was the wiser. When he related this to me, I was mortified. Now, part of me couldn't blame him and found it a bit amusing, but what if something had happened? He said the liability would be on them for leaving a forklift with the keys in it. Maybe he was right, I don't know. I don't recommend doing this. I told him this was not cool. Damn, you're right. He really should probably not have done that, but at least he knew what he was doing. And our second story. You don't have to tip your bartender. I've been a bartender for 7+ years, and I work at a fairly popular bar where I've worked for going on 2 years. When I started this job at the same time, I also started at a restaurant on the next block over. I only lasted at the restaurant for 2.5 shifts before I realized how problematic the place was and quit mid-shift. Being that we're a fun bar and open late, employees of aforementioned restaurant frequent my bar on the regular, and they have a well-earned reputation for just being crappy in general. Some examples of crappy behavior include, but are not limited to, puking in the sink, puking on the bar, being generally loud and obnoxious, punching my manager in the face when a tab couldn't be paid. One time, their general manager had a bottle of a pungent liqueur that they were going to gift somebody later. Now, it's illegal to bring outside alcohol into a bar, and they know this, but being that they weren't intending on drinking it, and because they were their restaurant's general manager, I let it slide. The liqueur ended up breaking on the floor, leaving the bar floor sticky until cleaned and pungent smelling even after it was being cleaned. Now for the short story after that long intro. Recently, someone who I assume is a server at the restaurant just started and has been coming in. The last time this person came in, he didn't tip. Counted the money twice, checked to make sure it wasn't sitting next to him on the bar, nothing, no tip. He even gave exact change down to the penny to sort of rub it in that he wasn't tipping. There's no way he doesn't have cash, he was in uniform, so he just got off his shift. From anybody who works for tips, this is a huge slap in the face, and I'm not exactly sure what we did to piss him off, but I wasn't going to ask. I do have one coworker who will ask people why folks didn't tip, but it's not my style. I've done this before for various reasons, but it's been a few years, but I relish doing it every chance I get. It's after last call, and the server's sitting at the bar and has already finished his vodka lemonade and has 2 people on either side of him, so he's in the middle of 5 people. I very methodically pour up 4 shots and give them to each person who's sitting next to him while deliberately skipping over him and tell them thanks for being great customers. They thank me, all whilst he doesn't make eye contact. I say cheers and walk away with a crap-eating grin. So you don't have to tip your bartender, but you might have to watch all your friends have fun after last call without you if you don't. Cheers. Edit. Just for clarity, the server minimum wage here is like $3.65. A server who works down the street would know that. We quite literally live off of our tips here. And our next story. Karen's pissed off because her name was printed in a newspaper without her permission. I work as a newspaper reporter for a small paper. I recently wrote an article mentioning the name of a new school board member. The article was not about her, did not quote her, and was in no way, shape, or form defaming or dishonest. Her name was simply mentioned in passing among several other names. She calls my desk and is livid. She tells me I have absolutely no right to publish her name without her express permission and threatens to sue if an apology is not published. She also demands to speak to the managing editor. I happily oblige. Of course, she's informed by the editor in short order that she's holding an elected position and, as such, her existence and position are already in the public forum. She's also informed that there's no legal obligation to notify people that their name will be published in a newspaper, and that's apparently when she really flew off the handle. She told my boss that every single person, no matter who they are, should be made aware if their name is going to be published, and that they should also have a chance to read the article before it goes to print. My boss laughed at her and then hung up. F you, Karen. If you don't want people to know who you are, then don't run for an elected position. Somebody with a thin grasp of the law and an entitled behavior running for public office? What could go wrong? And our last story. Another crazy HOA. After I got my first real job, I bought a place in a nice neighborhood. It was nice, but it was all older folks than me. The closing date was set, and I was told to go to the clubhouse to apply for the HOA. The lady that ran it said that I should cancel my closing until I get approved by the HOA. She said that there was an income requirement and a bunch of other restrictive stuff. They clearly didn't want me there and tried to request all kinds of extra documents and things looking for something to deny me, but eventually I was begrudgingly accepted. That began a long list of run-ins with the HOA. They didn't issue my clubhouse/pool pass for 6 months, and when I tried to swim there, the same lady told the pool attendant to kick me out because she knew I didn't have a pass yet. I had a second car that I wasn't driving, and I hadn't put the new registration sticker on the car. Since it was in my garage and I wasn't driving it, it wasn't a priority for me, but I left my garage door open one day, and they had my car towed out of my garage. The even crazier thing is that the sticker said 12/01, December 2012, and it was still December. But in small print, the sticker has the actual date, which was 12/6/01. They towed my car on something like 12/11. So someone walked up to my driveway to get a very close look at my sticker and see the specific date. I had the sticker, I just hadn't put it on yet. My car was towed to an impound lot on a Friday at around 5 o'clock, and they closed at 7 o'clock. So to get the car out, I had to wait until they opened on Monday. Then I had to pay the tow fee and a daily storage fee for each day of the weekend, even though they weren't open. They had a rule that grass couldn't be longer than 4 inches. Several times I would come home from work and my grass would be mowed, and they would bill me $75 saying my grass was over 4 inches. And since their intention was to piss me off and make me move, they would note that my grass was 4.2 inches. I couldn't verify because it would already be mowed. One morning I was leaving for work and I saw the grass cutting guy, third party, out mowing grass. Some people had cut their grass every week. I was due to cut my grass that weekend, but I was going to be out of town, so I decided I'd just have that guy cut my grass to be safe. I stopped and talked to him, and he said he charges $40, so I paid him, and he said he'd mow my grass. He did. But then when I returned from the weekend trip, I had a bill for $75, even though I'm the one that asked the guy to mow, and I already paid the guy. I got a letter from the guy saying that I hired him and paid him and went through the appeals process, which took about 3 months before I was refunded the $75. I was charged a $100 fine because they claimed that someone visited my house and drive through the neighborhood with their music too loud. Honestly, this may have been possible. I have friends that could have potentially had their music too loud, but no description of the car was given, and the time of the incident was while I was at work. So if someone visited, I wasn't there. For all I know, it could have been a salesperson or something. I have no idea. They had a provision where you couldn't have a roommate or tenant that wasn't approved by the HOA, which is fine, I guess, but they would cite me anytime someone stayed over. So if I had a date spend the night or a friend crash at my house, I'd get a violation. The rules didn't state how long the person needed to stay there to be considered a tenant, so in my case, they defined it as anything overnight. I talked to my neighbors about it, and they said that they'd have friends and family stay over without any problem. The point was that they were watching me all the time. In one particular case, a girl and I came back to my house at about midnight, and I had her put her car in my garage so they wouldn't see it. I still got a violation. So someone either looked into the windows of my garage and saw the car or saw her leaving the next day. As a footnote, if I were to get a guest approved as a tenant, it would be a several-week process, and they would be listed as a resident of my property until I had them removed. A little excessive for one night. I mulched my landscaping with a dark brown mulch and was cited because it had to be black or red. My mulch was about 2 shades away from black, so I had to remove it all one weekend and replace it the following weekend. The week in between, I got cited for not having any mulch. They ended up winning. I got sick of it and sold that house. The bummer of it all was that it was known as a really nice neighborhood, and when I mentioned to anyone where I lived, they'd say, "Oh wow, that's a really nice neighborhood." And when I would tell them that the HOA did all those stupid things, it made me look like I was just a crappy homeowner and didn't want to maintain my house. People would say, "My aunt lives there," and they never mentioned problems like that. But I honestly went out of my way to be a good neighbor and keep my house looking nice. I got along really well with all my neighbors, and they both acknowledged that the HOA just had it in for me. But since I was the only one being treated like this, other people had a hard time believing that I would be targeted in these ridiculous ways. So I sold the house and got the F out of there. The moral of the story for me was that I never want to force my way into a community where I'm not wanted. I debated ways to fight against their age discrimination, but ultimately I decided it's not worth it. I've got better crap to do with my life. If they want their old person neighborhood, they can have it. But I will say that I sold my house to a couple that was younger than I was. They were friends of a coworker, and I didn't even have to list the house. I'm not sure if they had any issues. I never asked. That place wasn't worth my energy or attention. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.